In this vid, I'm going to be reviewing FTWSpoon's Reshiboar deck. Reshiboar is a pretty good metagame deck right now. In fact, it made it well into the top cut at Nationals, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it at Worlds too. It's good enough that I actually built it myself just to practice against my deck, and according to FTWSpoon's list, it looks to be pretty consistent, pretty solid, and there's not that many suggestions I can actually make to it. But I did see a few things that are missing from the deck that I think are pretty crucial, so let's go ahead and look at them. Here is FTWSpoon's Reshiboar list. Looking at the Pokemon list, I think it's pretty solid. The Cleffa and the Tyrogue are his starters. Ideally, you're going to want to get the Cleffa out fairly early to start eking away and setting up, but if your opponent has a Cleffa out, you can also donk it with the Tyrogue. Because of the high donking going on with Cleffas, I think going with a 1 Cleffa and 1 Tyrogue is a very smart move, and I think this is going to be something that you're going to see in a lot more decks, is just seeing 1 of each starter, maybe 2 Cleffas, considering he doesn't have any other free retreat Pokemon. But the 1 Cleffa is not a bad move at all. He also runs a 2/2 line of Ninetales, and Ninetales is for Roast Reveal, which allows you to discard a fire energy to draw 3 cards. This is the draw engine in this deck. Another huge component of this deck is Emboar with Inferno Fandango that allows you to attach as many fire energy cards from your hand to one of your Pokemon as often as you like. And then, of course, your main attacker is Reshiram. You're ideally going to want to use Blue Flare to do 120 each turn. You have to discard 2 fire energy from that Pokemon, but Emboar allows you to reattach them in 1 turn, and with the use of Energy Retrieval and Fisherman, you should be able to get those energy back fairly quickly in order to keep them in your hand. I noticed that he, unlike from what I usually see in Reshiboar decks, also runs, which I'm assuming he runs the other Emboar, because he has a 3/2/4 Emboar instead of a 3/2/3 or a 4/2/4. I'm thinking that he probably runs 3 ability and 1 of this version, and this is also an excellent Pokemon. Does 150 and is just a backup attacker just in case your Reshirams are knocked out. He has 3 Reshirams in his deck. I think that's a pretty solid play. My only suggestion, and we'll get into this more when we go through the trainers and supporters, is that you don't have anything to get back your Pokemon from the discard pile once it's knocked out, which is why I believe you have the other Emboar in there as a backup attacker, because as soon as your Reshirams are knocked out, you have no way of bringing them back. So I would probably recommend dropping your Emboar line down to 3/2/3 and just sticking with the ability Emboars, or even increasing it to 4/2/4. And the reason why I suggest that is because with Pokemon Catcher coming out, they're going to see that Tepig as soon as you bench him, and if they have that catcher in hand, they're going to catcher him right up in order to knock him out before he can start Inferno Fandangoing. That's also something that you might want to consider with the Ninetales if you're finding that you're having a lot of issues with Catcher, is running a 3/3 line. However, that's probably not as critical as having an Emboar in play. But I still think a 3/2/3 line is solid. I don't think you need the other Emboar Hollow, and I think if we add some recovery cards to your supporter and trainer line, that'll help out with your main attackers. So let's take a look at your let's take a look at your energy line. Very simple, just 13 fire. I think that's perfect. I run 12 in mine, but the 1 card difference really isn't a big deal. If you find that yours is working better with 13, that's great. So let's go ahead and move right on to the trainers and supporters. So like I said earlier, the big thing that I noticed that was missing in this deck was a lack of recovery. I would definitely recommend having 1 Flower Shop as well as at least 1 Revive. The Revive can just bring back those Reshiram. Might even say 2 Revive, and that may even allow you to cut down your Reshiram line to 2. However, 1 revive and keeping it at 3 Reshiram is also an option. And Flower Shop Lady, you just never know if you're going to get a horrible start and, you know, miss out on crucial Embors, Ninetales, have them prize, and you just really want them back in the deck. Also allows you to put 3 energy cards back into your deck, which, because you're discarding so much energy, is going to be extremely useful. For your energy recovery line, I think that's pretty solid, although maybe a little overdone. You run 2 Fishermen, and that is a rare candy. That is not what I was going for. This is what I was going for. You have 4 energy retrieval and 2 Fishermen. I think the 2 Fishermen is solid. I might drop this down to 3 retrieval though, because your Flower Shop Lady is going to allow you to bring 3 back to your hand as well. And you also run 3 Junk Arm. 3 Junk Arm with 3 retrieval and 13 fire energy should be more than you need. The biggest mistakes that I've seen Reshiboar players do is just consistently use Roast Reveal even when they're set up, and they just really don't need to. It can be a waste of energy late game and can be extremely crucial in getting those and determining whether or not you can get those back with the appropriate trainer cards. Another card that let's see. I don't think you need Interviewers in this deck. Interviewers allows you to search for energy cards, but I really don't think it's essential. With 13 fire, you should be able to draw into enough with the Roast Reveal. If you find like you're having issues, if you do decide to decrease your fire line, you know, perhaps the Interviewers would be a good idea, but really I don't think it's that big of a deal. Let's see, you run 2 Engineer, which I don't think are really necessary. Engineers let you discard a card from your an energy card from your hand in order to draw 4. That's essentially doing the same thing as your Roast Reveal, and you know, it lets you do 1 more, but it also wastes your supporter for the turn. So I would probably drop the Engineer just to get those revives and flower shops in. And hopefully you won't need it, but I always like to have 1 twins per deck. You just never know when you're going to have a terrible start and need a twins to get you back in the game. You run 4 Collector and 2 Dual Ball. I do like that you run both of them. However, I don't think you need to run as many Collector. I think 3 Collector and 1 or 2 Dual Ball should be more than enough. Obviously, they're going to get your Reshiram out. And you can use communication to then trade them back in for the evolutions that you need. But I don't think you need any more than 4 or 5 supporters and trainers to search for basic. And right now, you have 6. So I think you could decrease that line a little bit, and that'll, again, help you get in those recovery cards. You run 2 Juniper and 2 Oak, so those count as your hand refreshers. I think those are very good choices. I personally only like to have 1 Juniper just because I'm worried that I'm going to have to discard something crucial. But if you're finding that the 1 Juniper is working out, or the 2 Juniper is working out well for you, then go for it. I also like the 2 Oak. I'm personally, I love just the more hand refreshers, the better. You just never know when you're going to get a meh hand. Copycat is also an option, but in a deck like this that doesn't run Yon Mega and you don't have to worry about matching your opponent's hand, I think Pont is the safer play, and it's just more consistent. So I definitely would stick with that Pont, and maybe even dropping 1 Juniper and increasing the Oak to 3. You run 2 Elm, which initially I'm not a fan of Elm, however, I believe we're going to be seeing a lot more trainer lock in the next format, and Elm is going to be crucial for getting around that trainer lock. If the only supporters that you have in your deck are like Pokemon Collector to search for basics, you're essentially going to be relying on just drawing into your evolution cards. So I really like the addition of Elms, and I think that's going to be big for next format. You run 1 Switch, which is always important in case you have, you know, something like an ability Embor stuck in the active position. You don't want to have to waste all those energy cards to retreat if you can avoid it. And then, of course, you will have 3 Candy. I think you could drop this line down to probably 2, because the only Pokemon that's going to be using Rare Candy is your Embor. So 1 line of Pokemon, I think, can do well with just 2 Rare Candy, and you can always Junk Arm if you really need another one. But you do run 2 of the middle evolution Pignite, so I think 2 Rare Candies should be fine. Your communication, you also run 4 communication. I think you can drop that down to 3. With 3 junk arm, if you really need another one, I think you'll be fine. And that's really about it. I think this deck is extremely consistent, extremely solid. It's a very good meta deck, and my main suggestion is just, you know, tweaking your supporter and trainer list a bit just to get some revives and flower shops in there, because you need to have some Pokemon recovery. You just never know when things are going to go bad for you. But other than that, I think this is a great deck. Thank you for submitting it, and if anyone would like their deck reviewed, just PM me your list. It will take several days to get it online just because of the long line of other deck reviews that I have, but if you submit it, I will get to it as soon as possible. So, thanks again for watching.